beautiful legacy. Every line, every curve leaves a trace of who we were.
Hello and welcome. You are listening to A Beautiful Legacy. I'm your host, Tiago Pinto, and this is your short moment to take a look on the people who shaped how we live, shop, work, and move. Today's episode takes us to Berkeley in the early 1970s. A small restaurant opened with a simple, almost radical premise. The food would be seasonal, the ingredients would be local, and the taste would be a non-negotiable. The restaurant was Chez Panisse, and behind it stood Alice Waters. At the time, this was not nostalgia, it was resistance. American food culture had fully embraced industrial efficiency. Supermarkets were temples of abundance, but flavor had been flattened. Tomatoes traveled thousands of kilometers. Lettuce lasted weeks. Origin was irrelevant. Price and consistency ruled. Alice Waters did not set out to change retail. She did not plan a movement. She simply insisted that food should taste like something. And in doing so, she quietly rewired how food would eventually be grown, sourced, marketed, and sold. Waters came of age in a world where convenience had won. Post-war food systems praised scale, shelf life, and predictability. Industrial agriculture delivered all three, but at a cost. There was collateral damage. Seasonality disappeared. Farmers became suppliers, not partners. When Waters traveled through France as a student, she encountered a different logic. Markets were daily rituals. Menus changed with the weather. Quality was assumed, not explained. Food was culture. And back in California, the contrast was stark. Chez Panisse became her answer, not as a restaurant chasing novelty, but as a place anchored to relationships. Farmers were named, ingredients were chosen, not ordered. Dishes followed the land, not trends. This was not about luxury, it was about respect for ingredients, for growers, and for the act of eating itself. What Waters understood early was this: if you restore taste, everything else follows.
Every line, every curve leaves a trace of who we were.
At first, the impact seemed contained within the walls of the restaurant. Chefs listened, diners noticed, critics wrote. But the real shift happened behind the scenes. Waters built direct networks with small farmers, ranchers, and producers. She paid fair prices. She accepted variability. She aligned menus to supply, not the other way around. This was the opposite of industrial logic. Yet, paradoxically, it proved scalable, not through replication, but through influence. Former Chez Panisse cooks carried the philosophy elsewhere. Farmers adjusted crops, knowing demand existed. Distributors began hearing new language, varietals, harvest dates, soil. Slowly, a new value system emerged, one where flour, origin, and ethics were no longer fringe concerns, but signals of quality. And retail was listening. Supermarkets do not adopt ideas out of sentiment. They adopt them when customers care. By late 1980s and 1990s, consumers were asking questions once unthinkable in grocery aisles. Where does this come from? When was it harvested? Who produced it? This was Alice Waters' philosophy, translated into retail behavior. Organic sections expanded, local sourcing programs appeared, premium private labels emerged, not competing on price but on provenance and narrative. Terms like farm to table evolved into farm to shelf. Retailers realized that taste could be a differentiator, that transparency could justify margin, that values could be packaged, not cynically but commercially. Waters never licensed her name. She never built a chain, yet her influence sat quietly behind chalkboard signage, origin labels, and seasonal promotions. She had made ethics legible to commerce.
Beautiful legacy. Every line, every curve leaves a trace of who we were.
In Europe, the ideas found fertile ground, less as a revolution, more as a reconnection. Traditional markets protected food designations, and regional pride already existed. But modern supermarkets had diluted them in favor of efficiency. Waters' philosophy helped legitimize a return. Retailers reframed local producers as partners. Seasonality became a marketing asset. Taste was repositioned as expertise, not nostalgia. In countries like France, Italy, Spain, and later Northern Europe, premium grocery formats leaned heavily on language Waters helped normalize. Short supply chains, named producers, limited harvests, food with a story. What changed was not the existence of quality. It was a translation into scalable retail system. Alice Waters' legacy is difficult to brand because it refuses simplification. She did not invent organic food. She did not create farmers' markets. She did not design supermarkets. What she did was far more disruptive. She made taste a moral argument. She made sourcing a cultural position. She made food retail accountable to the land again. Her work proved that values are not a cost center. They are a differentiator when made tangible. In today's grocery landscape, when retailers speak of sustainability, regenerative farming, or conscious consumption, they are opening in a framework she helped define decades earlier, not as a marketing, rather as a principle. The world we inherited from Alice Waters. The contemporary food retail landscape, organic aisles, local sourcing programs, premium private labels built on provenance, owes much of its logic to Alice Waters. She reframed taste as a form of trust and origin as a measurable value. In doing so, she gave retailers a new currency, credibility. Today, consumers expect transparency not as a bonus but as a baseline. They read labels, they question supply chains, they associate flavor with ethics. Waters' legacy lives in this expectation. She taught the industry that food is not neutral, that how something is grown matters as much as how it is priced. The world we inherited from Alice Waters is one where supermarkets no longer sell just products, but positions on land, on labor, on responsibility. And once taste re-entered the system, there was no going back.
Beauty. Beautiful legacy. Every line, every curve leaves a trace of who we were.
Alice Waters never tried to build an empire. She built conviction. By insisting that food should taste of the land it came from, she forced an entire system to slow down and pay attention. By treating farmers as collaborators rather than suppliers, she proved that relationships could scale where shortcuts could not. And by refusing to separate pleasure from responsibility, she showed that ethics and commerce were not opposing forces, but mutually reinforcing ones. Her influence endures not because it was loud, but because it was consistent. It moved quietly from kitchens to markets, from menus to shelves, until it became expectation rather than exception. She did not leave behind a chain, a logo, or a formula to replicate. She left behind a standard. And that, truly, is a beautiful legacy.
Beautiful legacy. Every line, every curve leaves a trace of who we were.
You've been listening to A Beautiful Legacy, a short moment of clarity in a world built by remarkable minds. If it inspired you, follow the show and join me again on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Until then, keep noticing the beauty people leave behind.
Beautiful legacy. Every line, every curve leaves a trace of who we were. In the shape of a chair, in the